Today, we're going to discuss what may be the strangest and richest mineral deposit ever found anywhere in the United States, and one that was built, improbably, out of nothing at all. In the high desert of northern Arizona, where the land splits open into a canyon so vast that the far wall dissolves into haze, there is a secret that has almost nothing to do with the canyon itself. Scattered beneath the sagebrush of the plateau that surrounds it stand hundreds of vertical columns of shattered rock, each as tall as a skyscraper and buried entirely underground. And inside a handful of them sits some of the highest-grade uranium ore ever mined in this country, wrapped around copper and silver in concentrations nobody expected, and nobody has entirely explained. These are the Grand Canyon breccia pipes, the record of a landscape that dissolved, collapsed, and then filled the emptiness it had made with treasure. To understand how that happened, we have to travel back roughly 340 million years to a version of the American Southwest that would be entirely unrecognizable today. Arizona then lay near the equator, drowned beneath a warm, shallow sea, and on its floor, the shells and skeletons of countless marine organisms settled into a blanket of carbonate mud that would harden into the Redwall Limestone, the great pale cliff band you can still see running the length of the Grand Canyon. Its most important quality is not its strength, but its vulnerability, because limestone, almost alone among the common rocks of the crust, can simply be dissolved away and carried off by water. And that is exactly what became of it. When the sea withdrew and the red wall was lifted into open air, rainwater began soaking down through the stone, faintly acidic and utterly relentless, attacking the rock chemically rather than wearing it away the way a river wears a hillside, opening hairline fractures into fissures, fissures into passages, and passages into chambers, until the limestone was honeycombed from the inside out. Across an area far larger than Arizona alone, the upper Redwall was hollowed into an enormous karst system of caves, shafts, and underground rivers, a landscape carved not by building anything but by taking it away, much as the limestone of the Yucatan is riddled today with sinkholes and flooded cenotes. But emptiness is a debt the Earth eventually collects. As the caverns widened, the rock above them was left spanning a void with nothing beneath it to push back. And eventually, in a moment that lasted seconds after a process that had taken millions of years, the roof failed. The overlying strata fell inward, shattering as they went and filling the chamber below with a chaotic jumble of angular blocks and rubble. That broken rock carries a name anyone who follows geology will recognize: breccia. Stones smashed apart and cemented back together by finer material. It is the most important ingredient in everything that follows, though nothing about the way it formed here resembles the way breccia is usually made. What happened next is among the strangest processes in all of geology, because when the cavern roof came down, it did not simply settle and stop. The rubble took up more volume than the solid rock it came from, but still not enough to fill the space, so a new void opened above the pile. And in time, that roof failed as well, and then the one above that. The failure climbed upward, layer by layer, in a slow-motion chain reaction that geologists call stoping. Imagine a chimney building itself upward through solid rock, not by being drilled or blasted, but by the roof of the world above it falling in, over and over, across a span of time almost impossible to hold in the mind. That is a breccia pipe. The finished column stands roughly 90 meters across and as much as 1,200 meters from floor to crown, with Mississippian limestone at its base and rock as young as the Triassic at its top, threading through 100 million years of Earth history in one continuous body of broken stone, invisible to anyone walking the plateau above it. And now, the absence that made these columns becomes the reason they matter, because a body of shattered rock has a property the solid rock around it does not, which is that it is full of space. The gaps between the fragments make it porous and permeable, an open chamber standing inside dense sandstones that fluids cannot cross, and in the deep circulation of the Earth's crust that is an extraordinary thing to build by accident. Every pipe became a vault waiting to be filled. Most would wait forever, and to this day, no one can say what separated the few that were filled from the many that were not. The metals came late, and they came from the side. Long after the collapsing had finished, warm groundwater began circulating through the rocks of the Colorado Plateau, leaching uranium, copper, silver, and nickel out of the strata it passed through and carrying them along dissolved, invisible rivers of metal moving at roughly the speed of a fingernail growing. Where those fluids met a breccia pipe, they did what water always does when it finds an easier path, and poured into it. Inside, everything changed, because the broken rock held organic material, and the water was starved of oxygen, and uranium can only travel while it is oxidized, so that stripping the oxygen away left it no choice but to fall out of solution and become stone again. What precipitated in the dark was uraninite, the dense black primary ore of uranium, and it did not form alone. It grew complexly intergrown with copper and silver sulfides, with cobalt and nickel minerals, with lead and zinc and arsenic, all crystallizing in the gaps between the shattered blocks, until the rubble that had fallen from a collapsing roof was cemented shut with metal, and the vault was finally sealed. The fluids left one signature behind them. The sandstones of the plateau are famously red, colored by a fine dusting of iron oxide on every grain, but the reducing waters stripped that iron away wherever they passed, so that around many of these ore bodies the red rock has turned white, a pale ghost marking the volume the treasure once flowed through. People found these pipes long before anyone understood them. In 1893, on the south rim of the Grand Canyon itself, a prospector staked a claim on an outcrop of green-stained rock and began working it for copper and silver, and it became the Orphan mine, clinging to the canyon wall below the rim with its ore hauled out by cable. For 6 decades, it was a modest operation, until in the early 1950s, a radiometric survey passed over the rim and the needles moved, and the Orphan turned out to be sitting on uranium ore rich enough to reshape the economics of the region. The men who staked that claim had no idea that the green stain at their feet was the sealed top of a column of collapsed limestone nearly a kilometer tall. 3 things make these deposits strange, and the first is what they are not made of. Almost every great metal deposit on Earth owes something to heat from below, to magma, to volcanism, to hot fluids driven upward by an igneous engine, and the breccia pipes owe none of it. The United States Geological Survey has been explicit on the point that there are no igneous rocks associated with these pipes, and that igneous processes played no part in their formation. It is an astonishing thing for the Earth to have managed without fire, a fortune built by subtraction. The second is their sheer, improbable shape, columns of rubble the width of a football field and the height of a skyscraper, standing inside solid rock beneath a plateau that millions of people cross every year without suspecting they are there. But the third strangeness is the one that still has no answer. The survey has mapped roughly 300 mineralized pipes and identified more than 1,100 further collapse features that may well be pipes too. And after 6 decades of exploration, only a small percentage have been found to hold economic ore. 2 pipes can stand within sight of one another in the same formation, fed by the same groundwater and formed by the same process, and one will be barren while the other holds a fortune, and nobody can fully explain why. These are among the best studied structures of their kind anywhere in the world, and they are still keeping the most important part of the secret. The strangeness is also the reason for the wealth, because a column of broken rock sealed inside stone that fluids cannot cross is one of the most efficient traps the Earth knows how to make. These are not the largest uranium deposits in America, and measured by total tonnage, the great districts of New Mexico and Wyoming dwarf them entirely. But what the breccia pipes hold is not size, it is concentration, and by that measure, nothing else in the country comes close. Pipes mined through the 1980s returned staggering grades, between roughly 0.42 and 1.08% uranium oxide, around 10 times the grade of the sandstone-hosted deposits that supplied most American production. Individual pipes yielded anywhere from 430,000 pounds to 7 million from a single column of rubble, with some 23 million pounds produced across the district as a whole. The copper is no less remarkable, running between 5.7 and 9.3% at the Canyon deposit, a figure the survey itself calls anomalously high and many times richer than the vast open pit mines further south in Arizona. All of this might sound like history, but it is not. 7 miles south of the Grand Canyon's south rim sits the Pinyon Plain Mine, working the same canyon deposit whose copper grades we just talked about. Mining began there in December of 2023, and the ore is still coming up today. In the first 3 months of 2026, the operator pulled out around 375,000 pounds of uranium oxide at an average grade of 1.12%, which is to say, just over 1% of the rock by weight. Across the first half of the year, the mine produced 625,000 pounds. That is a richer grade than anything the district managed in the 1980s. The company also reports that it costs about $23 to recover a pound of uranium here, and believes that ranks among the lowest costs of any uranium mine in the world. So this is not a claim about the past. These pipes are still the richest of their kind in America right now. The Grand Canyon breccia pipes tell a story of a tropical sea, of a continent quietly hollowed out from within, of roofs falling in the dark and columns of rubble climbing slowly toward the light, and of metal-bearing water finding those columns at last and sealing them shut with treasure. We tend to imagine that the earth builds its greatest riches, forging them in fire and driving them upward under enormous pressure. But here, it did the opposite, and made the richest rock on the continent out of the space where rock used to be. As we stand on the rim of the Grand Canyon, gazing out over one of the most photographed landscapes on the planet, the real strangeness lies behind us, beneath the flat and unremarkable plateau, in hundreds of sealed vaults that nobody has fully explained, most of them empty, a few among the richest things in America, and no reliable way yet of telling one from the other. There is a great deal still down there that nobody has explained, and we'll keep going after it here on Geoscope. Thanks for watching.